Sometimes, the scariest stories aren't the ones made up around campfires, but the ones that actually happened. Late at night, when the world quiets down, what if the shadows you see aren't just tricks of the eye? What if the voice calling you isn't who you think it is? In this video, we bring you 4 disturbing, true stories, each more unsettling than the last. Stories where reality blurs, instincts scream, and dread seeps through every crack. From haunted friendships to sinister forests, whispered voices to late-night stalkers, these accounts are real. And they might just change the way you see the world after dark. Some truths are better left unknown. But you're already here. So press play, and prepare for stories that will mess with your head. Haunted reunion with an old friend. It was a rainy Friday evening when I pulled into Tom's driveway, an old friend from high school I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. His house stood at the edge of a sleepy neighborhood, the kind where silence clings like fog. Inside, the dim lighting revealed dusty picture frames and worn furniture, untouched by time. We drank, laughed, and shared stories, but I couldn't shake the subtle pressure in my chest, as if something invisible was watching us. By midnight, we were too drunk to drive, and Tom offered the guest room. The room smelled like mothballs and stale air, with a single lamp casting long shadows on the wooden floor. I lay on the creaky mattress, still spinning from the alcohol, when a faint chill brushed across my skin. A rhythmic ticking echoed faintly, too slow to be a clock, too deliberate to be natural. I pulled the blanket up and closed my eyes, convincing myself it was just the pipes or an old heater clicking. At around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. The air felt heavier, like it was being squeezed through a filter of dread. In the corner of the room, backlit faintly by the streetlight outside, stood a tall silhouette. It looked like a man in a long trench coat, utterly motionless. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, but something about its presence made my stomach twist in fear. I couldn't scream. I just stared. The seconds dragged into minutes. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and even whispered, "Tom." But no response. When I reached for my phone to use the flashlight, the screen refused to turn on. My limbs felt heavy, sluggish, like I was underwater. And when I finally mustered the courage to turn on the bedside lamp, the figure was gone. Nothing stood there. No coat. No rack. Just empty, cold space. Morning came with an unsettling stillness. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, but it felt artificial, wrong, like a mask trying to reassure me. Over breakfast, I casually mentioned the coat rack in the guest room, hoping for a rational explanation. Tom paused, stared at me, then chuckled awkwardly. "What coat rack? I've never had one in there." He seemed sincere. Too sincere. The blood drained from my face. I insisted I saw something, described its shape, its height. Tom's expression changed subtly, his jaw tightening, his eyes avoiding mine. "Look, man," he finally said, "maybe you were dreaming. That room's weird. But I don't mess with it." He never elaborated. The rest of the morning was filled with silence and polite small talk, but I could feel the tension hanging over us, thick and unspoken. To this day, I don't know what I saw. Maybe it was a shadow. A trick of the light. Or maybe something else wanted me to see it. All I know is that something stood in that room with me, something tall, still, and watching. And it's the kind of presence you don't forget. Not after you felt it breathing the same air as you. Terrifying night in a forest campground. They hadn't planned to camp in that part of Sweden. The original site was closed due to unexpected flooding, so the family, 2 parents and their teenage son, chose a remote clearing deep in the woods. The sun was already low, casting long shadows between the pine trees. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the crunch of gravel under tires. As they set up their tents near a rusted, abandoned car, the air grew colder, sharp with the scent of moss and metal. That night, the fire crackled weakly as wind slithered through the branches above. Around 11 p.m., a strange metallic clank echoed from the direction of the abandoned vehicle. It wasn't a loose part shifting with the wind, it was rhythmic, purposeful, as if someone were inside, testing the door handle again and again. The boy whispered to his dad, who stood up slowly, flashlight in hand. When the beam hit the car, nothing moved. But the sound stopped instantly. They tried to laugh it off, blaming wildlife or rust, but unease hung in the air like fog. Sometime after midnight, a scream shattered the silence. Male, distant, and ragged, as though ripped from a throat raw with terror. The mother clutched her son. The father froze. No one spoke. Even the birds stopped. The scream didn't come again, but footsteps soon followed, crunching softly through the underbrush, circling their camp with maddening patience. From inside the tent, the boy could hear breathing. Not his own. Shallow. Wet. Close. He pressed his hands over his ears and squeezed his eyes shut, but the breathing only grew louder. When he finally screamed for his parents, it stopped. His father emerged, holding a pocket knife, eyes darting in every direction. But again, nothing was there. Only shadows, trees, and that silent, mocking car. At 5 a.m., headlights appeared through the trees, blue and red flashing faintly. Police. A suspect had escaped into the woods earlier that evening, they explained. Dangerous. Armed. Possibly hiding in the area. The officers searched the perimeter and advised the family to leave immediately. No one argued. As they packed, the mother noticed a smear of red on the side of their tent. She said nothing. Weeks later, unable to shake the experience, the father researched the forest. What he found sent shivers through him, a string of disappearances dating back decades. Hikers, campers, even police officers, vanished without a trace. One article mentioned an unsolved murder from the 70s. The victim's car had been left behind, rusting under the pines. The photo in the article showed the exact same vehicle they'd camped beside. Some places aren't just quiet. They're waiting. Waiting to be remembered. Or worse, waiting to be returned to. That forest hadn't forgotten its ghosts. And perhaps, for one long, terrifying night, it simply let the family go. A whisper from the dark. It started around 2:30 in the morning, the kind of hour where dreams blur into something darker. Two brothers, 6 and 8 years old, shared a small bedroom down the hall from their parents. The night was still, with only the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old wooden floors breaking the silence. The younger one stirred awake first, blinking into the dark. Then he heard it, his mother's voice, soft and calm, calling his name from downstairs. He sat up, confused. The hallway light was off. The usual smell of cinnamon from his mom's evening tea wasn't there. Something felt off, quiet in the wrong way, like sound had been swallowed whole. He nudged his older brother awake. "Mom's calling," he whispered. But the older boy's eyes opened wide, instantly alert. He didn't move. "That's not her," he said flatly, his voice low. "Stay here." The younger brother, still half asleep, crept toward the bedroom door despite the warning. As he opened it slightly, a cold draft swept in, carrying a scent like wet dirt and rusted metal. At the bottom of the stairs, someone stood, just barely visible in the moonlight leaking through the window. A woman, long-haired, wearing something that shimmered unnaturally. "Come here, sweetheart," she said. Her voice was almost right. Almost. The boy froze, his heart pounding. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle, like her neck wasn't quite connected right. Then she said his name again, with a voice that echoed strangely, like it had been recorded and replayed on an old tape. Behind him, his brother grabbed his arm hard and slammed the door shut. "Don't listen." "It's not her," he whispered, locking the door and backing away. In the morning, the parents were unusually quiet. Their father paced while their mother sat pale and distant at the kitchen table. They said there had been a break-in attempt. That they'd heard footsteps outside. But they never spoke of it again. The boys asked what they'd seen. The parents dismissed it. Bad dream, they said. But their eyes told a different story. Years later, the younger brother still remembers her voice. How it knew his name. How it smelled like the grave. And how the thing downstairs had stopped calling once the door was closed, but not because it had gone. It had waited. Quietly. Patiently. As if it had all the time in the world. He never saw it again. But sometimes, even as an adult, he'll hear a soft whisper in the night that sounds almost like his mother, except she's been gone for years. And when he does, he doesn't move. He just waits for it to go away. Stalked on the way home. It was just past midnight when Ava left the party. The streets were nearly empty, dimly lit by flickering street lamps and the occasional passing car. Her friends had offered to call a ride, but she insisted on walking, just a few blocks, she said. The night was cool and silent, save for the crunch of her boots on the pavement. That was, until she noticed a second set of footsteps, faint but deliberate, echoing just a beat behind hers. At first, she thought it was just her imagination. But when she slowed, the steps slowed too. When she stopped, they did the same. Her skin prickled, and her breath became shallow. She didn't turn around right away. Something told her not to. Instead, she crossed the street quickly, pretending to check her phone. A glance at a store window's reflection confirmed it, a man in a dark hoodie, keeping pace, watching. Her heart began to pound. She picked up the pace, texting her friend with trembling hands. The man didn't speak, but as she passed under a lamp, he grinned. "Ava," he said, voice low, amused. "I know where you live." That's when the panic set in. She broke into a run, her breath sharp in the cold air. The man's footsteps chased hers through the dark. She screamed, loud, desperate. A porch light flicked on ahead. A friend, alerted by her text, opened the door just as she reached it. The man stopped at the edge of the lawn, smirking, then turned and vanished into the night. Inside, Ava shook uncontrollably, her skin ice-cold. Her friend locked every door and called the police. The officers arrived but found no one nearby. Probably just someone messing around, they said. But Ava knew better. His eyes hadn't been playing around. They had meant harm. That night, she couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., she heard tapping at her window. Her bedroom was on the second floor. Slowly, she crept toward it and pulled back the curtain. No one. But as she turned away, a voice came, soft, through the glass. "I said I know where you live." Her scream brought her parents running. Again, the police came. Again, they found nothing. But they believed her enough to install alarms, cameras, locks on every door. Within a month, the family moved. No forwarding address. No public goodbye. Just gone. But Ava never felt safe again. Because safety isn't just about where you live, it's about who's watching. And the worst part isn't when they appear. It's when you realize they've been there the whole time. Waiting. Watching. Smiling. Sometimes, even years later, she'll wake up at exactly 3 a.m. Her window will be shut, the locks untouched. But she swears she can still hear it, the sound of someone tapping on the glass, just once. After hearing these 4 stories, one thing becomes disturbingly clear: the line between the ordinary and the horrific is thinner than we'd like to believe. A familiar face, a quiet forest, a loving voice, a walk home, things we take for granted, can shift into something else entirely. Something darker. What really waits for us in the silence of the night? How many times have we brushed off a sound, a shadow, or a chill in the air, only to tell ourselves it was just our imagination? But what if it wasn't? What if the things we ignore are watching, and waiting? Maybe the real terror isn't what lurks in haunted places, but how easily it can find its way into normal ones. Your home. Your memories. Your name. So before you close your eyes tonight, ask yourself, are you really alone? If these stories gave you chills, subscribe to the channel. Because here, every week, you'll hear truths most people would rather pretend don't exist.